Hi, I'm David, CEO of iDoRecall. iDoRecall is a unique tool. It's a spaced repetition flashcard app that helps students, professionals, and everyday lifelong learners remember what they learned forever if they so choose. The core workflow is the following. You can create flashcards that are linked to the specific locations in your learning materials where you come across the facts, concepts, formulas, or just about anything that you want to remember. When you practice memory retrieval with your flashcards, if you struggle with an answer, you can click the source link and voila! The source file, video, web page, or Kindle book will open at the precise relevant location so that you can refresh your memory in the context where you learned that ditty. This is a very powerful mechanism for enabling you to remember what you learned forever. Let's demonstrate a bit of the core workflow of the steps to create iDoRecall's flashcards that we call recalls. Whenever you hear me say the word recall, you can think the words magical flashcard. We're here in the library of your iDoRecall account. You can upload many file types, including Word, PDF, PowerPoint, and images. You can add YouTube videos and entire web pages to your library. If you enter the URL of a web page, we'll deliver a PDF of it to your library. If you enter the share URL of a YouTube or Vimeo video here, we'll add that to your library. The purpose of bringing your learning content into iDoRecall is so that you can consume it here, and while you're reading or watching it, when you come across something that you want to ensure that you'll remember, you should pause for a few seconds to create a recall. This process enables you to consume each piece of content only once and curate the key points as recalls. Saving the important stuff as recalls is way more powerful than saving it as notes. When you practice memory retrieval with your recalls, if you struggle with recalling the answer, you're always one click away from opening the source to refresh your memory in the exact location and context where you learned it. By using the recalls as a tool for remembering what you've learned, you never have to reread or rewatch your materials. Rereading and rewatching learning materials is neither efficient nor very effective as a strategy for optimizing your learning. As we all know, the typical student reads and rereads, or they read and they create highlights, and then they reread their highlights, or they read and they take notes and then they reread their notes. All of this behavior is passive, time-consuming, and not very effective at creating long-term recall ability of what they're trying to learn. It's important to realize that it's not truly learning if you can't recall what you say you've learned. If you can't remember or haven't achieved the procedural or muscle memory, then you can't truly claim that you've learned something. Contrary to these passive rereading-based learning behaviors, active learning means doing the kind of work that truly increases your ability to remember what you learn. The most powerful tool that we have for creating memories that you'll be able to easily retrieve on demand is memory retrieval practice. That's right. If you want to be able to easily recall some fact, concept, formula, foreign language word, or whatever, you have to practice retrieving it from memory. There is a large body of cognitive science research that backs up this assertion. If you want to build recall ability of something, you have to practice recalling it. There is an evolving consensus about how we store long-term memory. Our long-term memories are stored in the synapses of a finite group of gray matter neurons that many scientists refer to as an engram. We have seen in laboratory rodents that when a memory is retrieved, this storage unit, the engram, shows its synapses activated and even becoming physically larger. Even new synaptic connections begin to bud. Put simply, whenever we retrieve a memory, its neural storage unit becomes more powerful. But there is another aspect of memory retrieval practice that makes the process so powerful. Each gray matter neuron possesses thousands of synaptic connections, so any given neuron in our gray matter likely participates in multiple engrams. This explains why when you have a thought surrounding some memory you retrieved, other thoughts jump into consciousness that we didn't purposely retrieve. When one memory is retrieved from its storage unit, its engram, other engrams are activated because of overlapping neural connections. This means that with each memory retrieval practice, we newly wire together other engrams to that ditty we've recalled and create additional new pathways to find that memory in the future. In summary, each time we retrieve a memory, we make its storage unit more robust, and we create associations with other memories that make it easier to locate and retrieve that memory in the future. It's time to make a very important point. When you practice your recalls, you should always do the work of trying to retrieve the answer from memory. If you can't recall, admit it to yourself and then turn over the recall to check the answer. If you struggle with recalling the correct answer, you should click this source link to refresh your memory in the context where you first learned it. The source, be it file or video, will open at the precise relevant location. If the source is a web page, and you created the recall using the iDoRecall browser extension, that web page will open in a new browser tab and scroll right to the text that you highlighted or the region that you screen captured. If that source was one of your Kindle highlights, your Kindle desktop app will open the correct book at the page of the highlight. After you've refreshed your memory, it's time to rate your performance. Give yourself 5 stars if you had perfect, easy recall. On the other extreme, if you totally forgot, give yourself 1 star. iDoRecall is a spaced repetition flashcard app. Your star ratings are fed into an algorithm to schedule when you should next practice that recall. So that is the basic workflow. Read your learning materials, usually uploading them into your iDoRecall library, but also by reading any page on the web and using the iDoRecall Web Clipper browser extension. You can also sync iDoRecall with your Kindle highlights and create spaced repetition flashcards that are linked to those highlights. Every day, iDoRecall will present to you the recalls that you're closest to forgetting. Practice memory retrieval with those recalls. When you struggle with an answer, click the source link and refresh your memory in the context where you learned it. The remainder of this video is devoted to reviewing in detail the different sections and features of iDoRecall. I'll break down this presentation into chapters, return to specific chapters as recording, and refresh your memory if you forget how to do something. Keep in mind that iDoRecall is a web application. It works in all modern browsers on PCs, Macs, Chromebooks, and mobile device browsers in iOS and Android. In this video, we'll only be demonstrating the app in a computer's browser. While you can pretty much do anything on a phone in iDoRecall that you can do on your laptop, you may have to click a menu to get to various views because of the limitations of a phone's smaller screen real estate. Let's review the library in depth. The library is your repository for all of your learning content. You can upload Word, PowerPoint, PDF, PNG, and JPEG files. Keep in mind that you can delete any file you upload to your library, but you can't export files back to your device. So keep a copy of your files. In addition to these file types, you can in effect turn the entire web into your library. You can add any web page by pasting its URL into here. We'll create a PDF of that page and place it in your library. Another way to add a web page to your library is to use the iDoRecall Web Clipper browser extension. Currently, this is only available for Chromium-based browsers such as Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Opera, and Brave. We'll look further at the browser extension later in this video. You can also add YouTube and Vimeo videos to your library. Grab the share URL for the video and paste it here. When you add a new piece of content to your library, we first present you with this metadata form. Here you can edit the name of the content as it will appear in your library list. You can add a tag to help organize the library list and your recalls in your account. We don't offer folders. They're so $19.99. Tags are a far superior way to keep things organized. Your files and recalls can have 0, 1, or more than 1 tag. To add a tag, start typing. Existing tags in your account that match will be auto-suggested. If you want to use one of the suggested tags, simply click to add it. If you want to create a new tag, type it out and hit your Enter or Tab key. If you change your mind, click the X to remove it. Any tags that you add to a library item will be automatically and applied to all of the recalls that you subsequently create that are linked to that content. This is very helpful for locating the recalls that are linked to that file or video. This date offers you some project management features which you can utilize or ignore. We automatically set the date 2 weeks in the future from today, but you can change it to any date that you want. The date is intended to be a commitment that you're making to yourself about when you plan to finish processing what you're about to upload. Let me digress for a second and explain what I mean by processing. Each piece of library content needs to be consumed, meaning read or watched. As you consume it, you need to curate the bits of information that you want to remember and create recalls. That file or video is fully processed. And here's my definition of processing. That file or video is fully processed when you finish consuming it and finish creating all of the necessary recalls. At that point, just like you keep your email inbox clean, you should mark it as processed and move it out of your library list. We'll show you how to do this later. When you have the metadata the way you want, click Save to upload the file. Upload time depends on the file size and your connection speed. 1,000-page PDFs can take a few minutes, so be patient. Once uploaded, the file will appear in your library list and it will open in our file viewer. The metadata form that you just saw during the upload process can be edited and updated at any time. You can bring the metadata into view by clicking this gear icon. If you mouse over a library item in the list, you'll see that the gear is there, and you can click it to open the metadata form for that piece of content. While we're here, note that the metadata form has some additional features that were not present on the upload version of the form. For instance, you can mark the item as processed. The check source links integrity tool is something that you'll rarely use, but it can be helpful when you believe that a link to the relevant location of a linked recall is no longer working. Use this tool sparingly or reach out to us in support and we'll help you. The remainder of the features on this metadata form are self-explanatory. We'll discuss the Share with Groups feature a bit later. Let's open a library file by clicking it in the list. You're now looking at iDoRecall's file viewer. Word, PowerPoint, PDF, and image files are displayed in this viewer. Above the viewer is a header with the name of the file that you've opened. The button shows the number of recalls that you've created that are linked to this file. If you click the button, you'll be taken into practice mode for those linked recalls. Wherever you see this rocket icon in iDoRecall's user interface, clicking it will take you into practice for some subset of your recalls. The file viewer's toolbar is packed with features. Let's start with the three most important tools, the ones you'll use to create linked recalls. Click to activate the text tool. Drag over some text that you want to remember. Click the plus sign and then click Create Recall. The recall creation form will open. The text that you've selected and highlighted has been copied and pasted into the answer field of the form. You can edit this text and the recall will still be linked to the highlighted text in the file. Now draft your question. At this point, you'll save the recall. There are several other features available in the recall form that we'll discuss later. Let's create another recall. Use the snip tool to drag a marquee around an area of interest, such as an image, illustration, or table. You can reposition the marquee at this point if you like. Again, click the plus sign and the Create Recall button. The area of interest has been snipped and an image has been pasted into the answer field. Once again, you have to write a question to activate the Save Recall button. The third recall creation tool is the pin tool. You can drop a pin at any area of interest and create a recall that will be linked to the location of the pin. Depending on your screen size, the toolbar will have different configurations. So you can see as the screen gets smaller here, the toolbar shrinks, and then there's this ellipsis with additional tools hidden behind it. You can open this left navigation side panel. Here on the left section of it are thumbnails, and you can click to jump to another page. If the file has an outline or chapter navigation, you can click and then jump to different chapters, and you can add your own bookmarks and then be able to jump to those bookmarks. You can go to full width mode by clicking here and then return. And then we have tools for zooming that are self-evident. This is the pan tool that I'm using, and you can use it to drag your way through a document. You can also navigate with this little widget down here. This is a select tool, and it's very handy if you want to select text to copy and paste. Drag it to select it, and then click there, and now it's in my clipboard. We have a lot of submenus for different annotation tools. Over on the right side, you can search the text of a document, and then you can click to navigate. The comments section will show you any recalls that you've created, and you can click to navigate to them. On the narrow right sidebar is the metacognition hint tool, and we'll discuss this later on. There is also some context-sensitive help. While the file viewer is used for text and image-based files, we display videos in a video player. Let's add a YouTube video and show you how to create a recall that is linked to a particular time in the video. Enter the share URL for your YouTube or Vimeo video here. Make any edits you want in the metadata form and save. The video will open. You can watch it in full screen mode if you prefer. When you come across something that you want to remember, click the Create New Recall button and fill out the form. The recall will be linked to the current time code in the video. When you practice this recall, if you click the source link, the video will open at this time code. If you create multiple linked recalls to this video, they'll be stacked underneath the Create New Recall button. You can click to open and edit them, and then click to return to the furthest time in the video that you viewed. As I mentioned earlier, you can paste any web page URL here, and our servers will visit that page and add a PDF copy of the page to your library. Here's a PDF of a Wikipedia page as an example. Let's look further at the library list. You can sort the list by the date you added items to your library. You can sort it alphabetically based on the titles of the items. You can also sort the list based on the item's due date. You'll recall that when you add a file or video to the library, there's a deadline intended as your commitment to yourself when you'll finish processing the content, meaning when you'll finish consuming it and creating all the necessary recalls. If you don't modify the due date, we set it at a default of 2 weeks from the date you added it. This sorting by due date orders the list from overdue to soonest due down to latest due, or you can sort in the reverse direction. Notice that we assign colors to the icons for each item on the list. We do this to give you an indication of when they're due. Gray icons are due more than a week from today. Yellow-orange icons indicate items due between 2 and 7 days from today, and the red icons indicate items that are either overdue or are due in the next 2 days. When you mouse over any item in the list, you'll see the gear icon, and if you click that, you'll open the metadata form for that item. The percentage indicated on the far right of each item in the list tells you how far you've progressed reading or watching that file or video. Advocates of progressive reading find this information helpful. It's a wonderful way to keep track of your progress in processing each library item. If you click any item in the list, it will open in the appropriate viewer. As you mouse over the icon that indicates if that item is a file or video, the icon will change to a checkbox. If you check it, it becomes selected. You can click many items in the list by holding down the Shift key and shift-clicking to select items. If you want to select all the items, select all. Here, when you select one or more items in the list, the sorting tool disappears and we replace it with a set of what we call bulk action tools. These enable various actions to be performed on one or more selected items. Here in the library, if you select some items and click the Practice bulk action tool, you'll be taken into practice for the set of recalls that are linked to those selected files and videos. You can mark the selected items as processed. You can delete them. We'll discuss sharing with groups later on. You can manage the tags of your selection set. I'll explain this fully when we review the recall section of iDoRecall. You'll note that we offer the ability to search your library. Entering text will filter the list for the files and videos whose title matches your search string. You can also search by tags or a combination of tags and text. We'll review the search functionality in greater depth when we discuss the recall section of the app coming up next. We have a tags panel here on the left and an analogous tags panel in the recall section of the app, and we'll discuss it in detail shortly. Let's move on to discuss the recall section of the app. Here in the recall section, you have a list of all of your recalls. The text of the items in the list is the text of the question field of the recalls. If the text is too long to fit, we truncate it with an ellipsis. If you look at the top of the tags panel, you'll see the total number of recalls in your account. If you look at the counter in the search field, you'll typically see a number that is smaller than the true number of your recalls. This is because our lists are infinite scroll lists. Whenever you open the recall or library section of the app, the first up to 25 items are downloaded, but as you scroll, additional items are downloaded in groups of 25 until all of the matching items are retrieved from iDoRecall servers. This methodology has some practical implications. First of all, if you use the Select All control and only 25 recalls are downloaded at that moment, only those 25 recalls will be selected. The other matching items in the cloud won't be selected. You can see that only 25 recalls have been selected, and any bulk action that you apply to that selection will only be applied to those 25. We're currently working on changing the function of the Select All controls so that the bulk action is applied to all of the recalls that match the search, even the recalls that are not downloaded at the moment. At the time you're watching this video, that change may already be in effect. You'll know that the update has been released when you see that these two numbers are identical when you first enter the library or the recall section. Also, when you use the Select All tool, the number selected displayed here will reflect the number of matches in our database. We think that this change will be a significant improvement. The project is more complex than you might think, and it's taking some time for us to fully realize. When one or more recalls are selected, the sorting options control is replaced by a series of bulk action tools. You can click to take your selection of recalls directly into practice. You can click tags, and you'll be able to manage the tags of the selected recalls. Here you can see which tags, if there are any that all of the selected recalls have in common, and see which tags some of the recalls in the selection set possess. If you click an X on any tag and then save your edits, that tag will be removed from all the recalls in the selection group that possess it. You can add tags here, and if you save your edits, they'll be applied to all of the selected recalls. Click here to remove all of the tags of your selected recalls. As always, no changes take effect until you click to save edit. If you want to snooze a selected group of recalls, this panel will open. Snooze recalls won't appear in your daily scheduled practice until the snooze date has arrived. Recalls that were already scheduled later than that date will appear in practice on their correct due date. I mentioned a few times that the list that you see is the result of the matches of a search. As you can see, the search field is currently empty. In the recall section, an empty search matches to all of the recalls in your account, and in the library section, an empty search matches to all of the library files in your account. If you start to type into the search field, you may see some of the tags you've been using are auto-suggested. If you click one of them, the tag will be thrown into the search field, and the list will be filtered for all of the recalls that possess that tag. If you click after that tag and start to type some text, you may see more matching tags auto-suggested. You can add as many tags as you want to the search field, but realize that the search field operates with an AND rather than an OR type algorithm. In other words, the results will be those recalls who possess all of the entries in the search field. As you can see here, no recalls possess both of these tags. If you type a string of characters, the results will be filtered for matching recalls where that string exists in either the question or answer. You can combine tags and a single string in the search. Looking at the list of recalls, you can sort it several ways. My favorite sort selection is creation date newest first. This helps me quickly find a recall that I recently created and I want to edit. You can sort alphabetically by the question text. In practice, the sort isn't all that useful. You can sort by the due date. This has to do with the scheduling of recalls for practice by the spaced repetition algorithm. If you're finished practicing all of the recalls due for today and you want to practice ones that are coming up tomorrow or the day after, sort by due for practice, soonest first. Then select a bunch from the top of the list. Click to take them into practice, and this way you'll be getting a little bit ahead of the schedule instead of waiting until tomorrow when they probably would have appeared. If you sort by average star rating, lowest to highest, the top of the list will contain those recalls that either you haven't practiced or have practiced but struggled the most with to recall the correct answer. Select some of the recalls at the top of the list and give them some extra practice if you like. To examine a recall, click to open it. You can make edits and then save your changes. Besides the linked recalls that you create in your library, you can also upload sets of flashcards from other apps, as well as files, in order to create recalls in bulk. First, click Import Flashcards. Let's use Quizlet as an example. Follow their instructions for export, then paste a copy of the exported text here. You can add tags to the impending import. Click to import and they will be added to your recalls collection. They will be scheduled for practice by the iDoRecall spaced repetition algorithm, with the first practices of these recalls beginning tomorrow. Note that Quizlet doesn't include images or audio data with their exports. You can do the same with other apps. For Anki, export the deck as cards in plain text file format. Add a tag to complete the import. We don't currently support importing media or other data from Anki. It's time to dive into the Tags panel. Tags panels are present in both the recalls and library sections and place some very convenient and powerful functionality at your fingertips. At the top, we see the total number of recalls in this user's account. Below that is a list of all of the tags that this user has created in the recalls and library sections. You can manually add another tag right here and it'll be added to the list. You could apply a tag to one or more of your recalls here by dragging and dropping the selected recalls onto the tag in the panel. The list of tags can be sorted several ways. This includes alphabetically or sorted based on the total number of recalls that possess that individual tag. Here in the recalls section, these numbers reflect the number of recalls that possess the tag. But when you look at the tags panel in the library, the numbers reflect the number of library items that possess the tag. If there's no number here in the recall section, that tag might be used in the library, or it might not be used at all. Tags can be sorted by the date they were created, or by the average star rating that you've issued for all of the individual practices performed on the recalls that possess a given tag. This is useful if you want to find the tags associated with some of the recalls that you struggle with the most, as indicated by the low star rating. You can use this information to give your more challenging recalls a little extra practice. If you click on a tag, the tag is thrown into the search field and the list is immediately filtered for those recalls that possess the tag. If I click on another tag, that replaces the content in the search field. When I hover over a tag, you can see the number of recalls that possess the tag attached to the rocket icon. Remember, wherever you see the rocket icon in the app, if you click it, you're going into practice. If you click the rocket here, you'll be taken into practice mode for all the calls that possess this tag. Notice the number next to the star. That's the average star rating for all of the recalls that possess that tag. This indicates your general overall level of recall for the collection of recalls that possess the tag. If the star rating is low, perhaps you should click and give those recalls a little extra practice. You can click the pencil icon to edit the name of the tag. It's not only a perfect way to fix a typo, it's a way to merge two tags. Say you have two tags that were really meant for the same thing, but you use different spellings or different words. All you have to do is edit the spelling or wording of the tag you want to merge into the other one, and voila, you have a single tag that is applied to and consolidates all of the recalls from both original sets. If you want to remove a tag altogether, simply click the X and confirm. While we're at it, if you no longer want to see a tag being auto-suggested, just click its X in the auto-suggestion list and it won't be suggested again until you manually type it and reuse it in the future. After you use it again, it will resume being auto-suggested. Continuing down to the bottom of the Tags panel, click Untagged Recalls to view your list of recalls that don't possess any tags. Then you can add tags to them if you want by using the Manage Tags bulk action. As I've mentioned, snoozing recalls takes them out of the flow of scheduled practice. If you snooze a recall, it won't appear in a daily practice session until sometime on or beyond the snooze date. You can always find your snooze recalls by clicking them here in the tags panel in the recall section. If I want, I can select some or all of these and unsnooze them. You can mark recalls with a flag during practice, and they'll appear here in the flagged list. And you can view those flagged recalls by clicking here. You might flag a recall because you want to edit it after practice rather than breaking up your flow, or perhaps you intend to snooze it or perform some other action. Let's take a quick look at some of the features that are different on the Libraries tags panel. The list of tags is identical for both versions of the tags panel in the recalls and in the library section, but the incidence counts for the tags listed in the Libraries tags panel refer to the number of library items that possess that tag, whereas the tags panel in the recall section lists the counts for the number of recalls that possess that tag. It's common to see that many tags in the list in the library don't have a number because that tag is only being used on recalls. We talked earlier about marking library items as processed after you finish consuming them and creating all the necessary recalls. There are several places in the UI where you can mark a file as processed. One is to select the file here and mark it as processed. It will vanish from the library list, but you can see it again by clicking Processed Items here on the Tags panel. You can always select it from here and mark it as unprocessed, and it'll return to the main library list. We'll discuss the wonderful feature of bringing external items into your library later in this video. You get to those items here in the Tags panel. So far, we've only superficially worked with the Q&A fields. Let's dig deeper. I'm going to create a new recall here in the Recall section of the app. It's not a common practice to create a recall in the Recall section, since these recalls won't be linked to any of your library files or videos. But for what I'm about to show you, this serves the purpose of this demonstration. Recalls have a Q&A field for the question and answer. These are rich text fields and have extensive editing capabilities with every bell and whistle that you can imagine. Behind the text and paragraph controls are submenus with numerous additional rich text formatting options. You can upload one or more images from your device into either the Q&A field. Once added, the image itself has multiple editing options. There are a lot of other items that you can insert into the field, such as math and scientific formulas, chemical symbols, and full chemical equations. You can flip the contents of the Q&A fields by clicking these arrows. You can record up to 5 minutes of audio for the Q&A fields. The Q&A fields can have audio with or without text. The audios are set to default to autoplay during practice. The Q&A fields have a 1,500 character limit, but that shouldn't be a problem because most recalls should be brief, focused, and concise. Let's explore the remainder of the anatomy of a recall. We've described how our tag fields work earlier. As a quick recap, to add a tag, start typing. Existing tags in your account that match will be auto-suggested. If you want to use one of those tags, simply click to add it. If you don't want to see a tag auto-suggested any longer, just click its X in the suggestion list, and it won't be suggested until you use it again. If you want to create a new tag, type it out and hit your Enter or Tab key. If you change your mind, click the X to remove it. You can add as many tags as you like to a recall. Let's click Show More to see the remainder of the options available. When you click to save a recall, the system will remember whether it was in the Show More or Show Less state, and the next recall form that you open will be in the last remembered state. A bidirectional or reversible recall is a single recall where sometimes you will see it in practice where you are shown the question and challenged to recall the answer, while at other times you'll be shown the answer and be challenged to recall the question. The classic use case for this is when you're learning a foreign language word. Take, for example, the English-French word pair, anniversary and anniversaire. Sometimes you will be shown the English word and challenged to recall the French word, and sometimes you'll be shown the reverse. The spaced repetition algorithm will treat these directions as two separate recalls and will schedule them separately based upon the star ratings that you issue during each practice. Here's the source link field, and when you create a linked recall while consuming content in the library, the system automatically fills in this field for you. You can't edit this field after that linked recall has been created. When you create a recall here in the recall section, you can type or paste in a web URL if you want. During practice, when you click the source link for that recall, the web page will open in a new browser tab. But if you want to create a recall that is linked to a web page, you really should use the iDoRecall web clipper browser extension so that you can link to a specific string of highlighted text or an image on the page. Again, we'll show you more about this later. This is the Share with Groups widget. This enables you to share the recall to the recall list of one or more of your groups. We'll demonstrate this later when we present the groups section of the app. This is the response log. I have to switch to an existing recall for a moment to demonstrate it for you. Here in this recall, when you click the response log, this pop-up presents your entire history of practice of the recall, including the date of each practice, any response that you wrote, or a recording if you recorded a response, as well as the star rating you issued when declaring how well you recalled the answer. This is the place to go to check if you're always giving the same wrong answer. Here is the metacognition widget, and we'll also discuss this in a special section later on. There is another kind of recall that you can create besides the Q&A type recalls that you've been seeing up until now. We call these redaction recalls, and they nicely solve what are called in apps like Anki, image occlusion, and close deletion flashcards. Just drop an image into the question or answer field of a recall and click here to go into redaction mode. Now we're in redaction mode and you're looking at the redaction composer. It's very simple to operate. First, you have to enter a title or some helpful instruction message that will be shown on the front of the recall during practice. That text that you entered here will also be displayed for that recall in your recalls list. Next, you drag redaction rectangles over those areas of the image that you want to mask or redact when the image is shown in practice. Now, if I stopped right here and I clicked Save for Recalls, I would indeed create 4 individual recalls that will all be managed separately by the iDoRecall spaced repetition algorithm. But we advise you to select progressive mode. Notice now that we're only going to save a single recall, and that recall will be shown to you in a way where you progressively unmask each redaction as you click to unmask it. If I want 2 of the redaction rectangles to be masked and then unmasked in tandem during practice, I can merge them. I'll click to select them. You can see how the little circles have become orange. Notice how after I've merged them, they have the same number. I'll split them back so that we again have 4 individual redactions. Let's save this progressive recall and see how it looks in practice. Here is our single progressive recall with 4 redacted labels. The first one, where we have to think of what's hidden behind it, has a green border. After I recall the answer, I'll click here to unmask it. And I'll do the same for the next one, and then the next one. When I click to reveal the final redaction, I'm taken to the back of the recall, where I can rate my recall performance. If this had not been a progressive recall, the 4 redactions would have created 4 unique recalls that would appear in my recalls list and would be managed independent of each other by the spacing algorithm. Redaction mode can handle creation of recalls based on either a single image or a string of text. It can take a combination of text and an image. The handling of text is somewhat analogous to what I demonstrated for the images. I've got some text here, and I'll click redaction mode. The string of text is now displayed in the redaction composer. There's no need to enter a title or some instructional text like there was for an image. The string itself will be displayed in the recalls list, and the redacted characters will be replaced with asterisks so as not to serve as spoilers. Let's redact some characters. Now we'll save in progressive mode as a single recall. Again, let's experience it in practice. First, let's recall the word behind the green rectangle of the first redaction, and then let's do the same with the last redaction. There's a couple of points that I want to stress. First, redaction mode can only handle text or an image, but not both in the same recall. The text or image that you want to use can be located in either the Q or A field, but if there is something in the Q field that you didn't want to use for the redaction, the system is going to default to the Q field. We've had a few peeks at practice mode up until now, but let's take a closer look. Here we are in practice looking at the front of a recall. We're being posed with a question, and I want to stress again that you should never look at the front of a recall and then quickly turn it over and look at the answer and then tell yourself, I knew that. It's critical that before you check the answer, you do your best to try and recall the answer from memory. And if you're unable to recall it, you admit to yourself you were unable before you turn it over. If you don't follow this best practice, you're not going to strengthen those n-gram storage units in your gray matter. You're not going to create associations with the contexts of other things that are bouncing around in your head at the moment. And you're going to give yourself a false sense of really knowing something when, in fact, maybe you were just familiar with it, but couldn't retrieve it on your own if you had to. This is the R field. R stands for response, and optionally you can type in your response, or you can record an audio. To record an audio, click the microphone icon. Many of our users swear by the practice of creating some record of their response. They claim that this enhances their power of creating strong recallability, and there is another benefit to recording your answer. We keep a log, as I've showed you, and you'll be able to check to see if you're giving the same wrong answer over and over. This is my recorded answer. This is my recorded answer. If you don't want to practice a recall at this moment, click the skip button and you'll move to the next one in the practice queue. If you skip a recall during a spaced repetition scheduled practice session, your daily practice, it will reappear later in the session and remain in the queue until you practice it. If you click the flag icon, the recall will be flagged for your later attention. You can view your list of flagged recalls in the recall section. A common use case for flagging is because you might want to make your edits later rather than break up your flow during the practice session, or maybe you plan to snooze that flagged recall after this practice. Click the question mark to see some keyboard shortcuts available when you're looking at the front of a recall. Let's check the answer and examine the back of the recall. You'll see the question, the answer, and if you did enter or record a response, that'll also be shown here. Review the answer and assess your performance in recalling it. In a moment, you'll have to grade your performance. At the top, you can see the number of recalls for this practice session and which one in the sequence we're on. Note that whenever you go into a practice session, the selected or the scheduled recalls that you're about to look at are presented in a randomized sequence. At any time, if you wish to end the practice session prematurely, you can click the exit button or tap the escape key on your keyboard. Now let's focus at the bottom of the screen. On the left is the date that you last saw the recall that you're currently practicing. If this is the first time you're practicing it, you'll see today's date. Next to that is the source link button. The center is the star rating widget. To finish with this recall and move to the next one in the session, you'll issue a star rating, declaring how successful you were in recalling the correct answer. 5 stars indicates that you had perfect, easy recall. On the other extreme, 1 star means that you totally forgot. Try to use the entire range of stars as you grade your performance rather than take a pass-fail, 5-star, 1-star approach. That way you'll get optimal results out of our spaced repetition algorithm. Notice how we display under each star when you'll be seeing that recall again. If you select that star, these numbers are being supplied by the spaced repetition algorithm, and the numbers will expand to much larger ones as you continue to practice the same recall into the future and give yourself passing star ratings, passing meaning 2 to 5 stars. But 1 star will always take you back to the start of the algorithm, and you'll see that recall tomorrow. If you struggle to recall the correct answer, it's a best practice to click the source link so that you can refresh your memory in the original context where you learned it. Here, the relevant file opened at the precise location. The entire file is here. You can move backwards or forwards as needed to fully refresh your memory. If the source file had been a video would have opened at the precise relevant time code. If it had been a web page, that page would have opened in a new browser tab and scrolled to the correct location. If the source link was a Kindle highlight and you were practicing memory retrieval on your computer, the Kindle desktop app would have booted and it would have opened the correct book at the page with the highlight. On the far right is the flag button like we saw on the front of the recall. I'll flag this recall for later attention. If you click the help question mark, a pop-up will depict the keyboard shortcuts available on the back of the recall. By clicking the edit button, the edit form opens and you can make a correction or enhance your recall right here and now. Notice that the skip button is located here on the back of the recall. A strategy that some users employ is to use the skip function as a training mode. The first time that a recall appears in scheduled practice memory retrieval on it a few times, skipping it until they're satisfied. And then on the final time, they give themselves a star rating, ending the training cycle. I could issue a 1-star rating for my performance on this recall by clicking a 1 on my keyboard, but I'll click a 1-star rating on the rating widget and move on to the next recall in the session. There are many ways to enter a practice session. Every day you should make a habit of practicing memory retrieval of the recalls that you're closest to forgetting as determined and scheduled by the spaced repetition algorithm. To practice your daily recalls, click Practice on the sidebar. You can practice any of your recalls at any time you want. There are several ways to manually take recalls into practice, and I want to review them with you now. In the recall section, you can select one or more recalls from the list and click the bulk action practice button to take them into practice. You can also take a set of recalls that possess the same tag by clicking the rocket icon of that tag on the tags panel. In the library section of the app, you can also click the rocket icon of a tag on the tags panel, and you'll be taken into practice for all of the recalls that are linked to the files and videos that possess that tag. You can select one or more library items and then click Practice to take the recalls that are linked to those files and videos into practice. If you have a file open, you can click the Practice Linked Recalls button. And if you have the metadata form of a library item open, you can click from there to take the linked recalls into practice. At the time of this recording, we don't offer the ability to practice recalls within a group, but that function will be available in the near future. We're going to cover the group section of iDoRecall with the stipulation that the group section is under very intense development of a massive update at the time of this recording. Some of what you're about to see may be significantly changed by the time you're watching this. We will record a dedicated video for that upgraded version of groups after the features have been released. I'll preview some of the design shortly to prepare you for what is about to come. Groups is the social hub of iDoRecall. A group can serve as a place where fellow students can collaborate on a subject or an area of common interest, or a teacher can provide a space for sharing and collaboration with her students. The core feature of a group is that it has its own recalls and library lists. The group owner, the person who created the group, can share files, videos, and recalls with the group, and the owner can establish whether the other members of the group also have sharing privileges. Every member of the group can clone this content into their personal account's recall and library lists as if it originated in their account. It's our policy that you should only share content where you own the copyright or have permission from the copyright owner. Any groups that you have created or joined are listed here on the left. Let's look briefly at the short steps for creating a group. Click Create New Group and fill out this form. A group name is required. In the future, every group will have to have a unique name in our system. The group description is optional. You can add a custom image for the group. You should reveal your real name so that the group members will know who you are. Currently, there are only 2 options to check or uncheck. The first determines if people who get access to the group share link are allowed right into the group, or whether they have to wait until you click to approve them. The second checkbox establishes whether members are permitted to contribute content to the group. If they are permitted, the submitted recalls and library content will arrive in the list that you as the group owner will see, and those recalls and library items won't be published for all members until you click to approve each of them. After you create the group, you'll be shown its About page, and here you can click to copy the share URL and then distribute it to the folks you hope will join. If someone receives the share URL and clicks it, one of two things will happen. If they already have an iDoRecall account, they'll be taken to the group's About page where they can click to join the group, or they can click Nevermind. By the way, they can also enter the share URL right here. If they don't have an iDoRecall account, the share URL will lead them through the sign-up process and email confirmation, culminating in their creating a free account and ending up on the About page where they can decide whether or not to join the group. Currently, all iDoRecall groups are private. There's no directory of groups. The only way to become a member of a group that you didn't create is to receive a share link and use it. The forthcoming major update of groups will permit the creation of public groups that you'll be able to find and search for in a directory. Anyone will be able to set any of their groups to public state and allow people that they may not know to join. There will also be a featured public groups section that will contain exciting, comprehensive recall sets that have been produced by or commissioned by iDoRecall. Shortly, we will release comprehensive sets of recalls as companion content for most of the OpenStax college and high school free textbook. Cloning these recalls into your account will not count towards the 200 recall limit that we have for free accounts. To be clear, free users of iDoRecall will be able to use the OpenStax recalls for free and without limitation. The public directory will soon be shown in the app and will look like this. If you click on a featured group, you'll see a detailed page like this. A featured group's detailed page on our website will look like this. Here's an example of a featured group as it will appear on our website. Let's tour the current state of a few of the group subpages. A more complete tour of the existing state of the group section is available, and I'll share a link in this video's description. We're going to cover this a bit superficially since so much will soon be changing. The recall subpage of a group lists all of the recalls that have been shared with the group, the owner, and any members that the owner has elevated to moderator status have the privilege of approving or rejecting recalls that have not yet been published and are not yet visible to ordinary members of the group. Members can click to inspect the contents of a recall, and if they desire, they can clone a copy that will be added to their personal recalls list and managed by the spaced repetition algorithm, the same as other recalls in the list that they created themselves. Recalls can be selected and cloned in bulk. Currently, every time you clone a recall from a group, you get a fresh copy in your account. This can lead to a lot of duplicates if you keep cloning the same recall repeatedly. We'll be correcting this issue in the new groups update. If a recall you clone has a source link, that link will open the source as expected during practice, even if you don't have that source in your personal library. Once you clone a recall, you can edit it in your account, and those changes will not affect the source recall in the group. Here in the library subpage, you can likewise open any library item and inspect it, clone it if you like. When you share a file with the group receives the bare file. If there are recalls linked to that file, those recalls will not be shared along with the file. You have to share those recalls separately if that is your intention. If you want to clone a library item to your personal account, the procedure is the same as we demonstrated a minute ago with recalls. Now let's look how to share a library item with a group. One way is to select one or more items in your library list, then click Share. When you click into the Share widget, the groups that you have created or joined will be auto-suggested. Select one or more of these groups, and then click the Share button. The items that you selected will be immediately shared with the group. If you are not the owner or moderator for a group and are just a regular member, you'll have to wait until your shared content is approved before you'll see it in the library. You can also share a library item to a group by its metadata form. You can even do this at the time of initial upload of that file into your account. You can share recalls to your groups via the bulk action. In the same way I just demonstrated for library items, you can also share recalls right from a recall creation or edit form using the Share with Group widget. When the recall is saved, the assigned group will receive a cloned copy in its recall list. Again, remember that we have a massive update underway for the group section, and it may already be in effect by the time you're viewing this video. Let's take a quick tour of the profile section of your account. You can get to your profile by clicking your avatar up on the header, or by going to the hamburger menu on the sidebar. The profile section has its own sidebar, and here you can change your avatar or profile photo. You can also log out or begin the process of deleting all of your data from our servers. The profile has a series of subpages. The account subpage is where you can change your name, time zone, email, and password. The description subpage is largely self-explanatory. It gives you information about your account status, any transaction records that exist, and information about any bonus days that you've earned. Our bonus days program enables you to extend your subscription renewal date each time you perform certain activities, such as inviting friends or achieving certain milestones in your use of the app. When an invited friend makes a subscription payment, you also earn bonus days. The notification subpage is a work in progress. We currently offer a daily reminder email and a daily browser notification if you choose to enable them. You can set which days and times they arrive. The time, of course, is relative to the time zone setting in your account subpage of the profile. Here is an example of a daily reminder email. You can see how many recalls due for practice today, and if you click that link, the new browser tab will open in practice mode, and you can go straight to practicing those recalls. You'll also see two lists of library files, ones that are overdue and ones that are due in the next 2 days. This is based upon the processing deadline that was set in the metadata form. If you click a file, it will open in a new browser tab ready for you to continue where you left off. You'll recall that earlier we talked about using the reminder feature as a project management tool. Some users like that, and others ignore this feature. Your progress displays a lot of metrics about what you've been doing in your account. Here's an interesting view of the progress of one of our users. You can see that there are a lot of detailed charts and cool facts about his activity. On the settings page, there are two interesting things to point out. First, we have a workload protection system that you can turn on or off with this checkbox. It regulates how many recalls the spaced repetition algorithm will schedule into the practice tab on the sidebar for any given day. You can set the maximum number here, and then set how many recalls to redistribute to each of the subsequent days after the maximum has been hit to deal with the overflow. We added this feature so that our users could control their workload and not encounter a day where they feel overwhelmed. The other item of note on this page is to be aware that you can download a CSV file of all of your recalls on demand at any time, and you can use that file to transfer your recalls to other flashcard apps. Again, remember that we don't offer downloads of your files, so keep an original copy for yourself. There are legal reasons why we have this limitation. The integration section of the profile is where you can trigger adding the iDoRecall web clipper browser extension to your Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Brave, or Opera browser. Once the extension is installed, you can then also sync your Kindle highlights with your iDoRecall account. Let's look at 4 special features of iDoRecall. We'll start with the iDoRecall web clipper browser extension. Our browser extension works on any Chromium engine-based browser, with Chrome and Microsoft Edge being the most popular examples. You can add the extension by going to the integration section of your profile. Clicking here will take you to the Chrome Web Store, and you can proceed with the installation of the extension. You should then pin the extension so that its icon is always in view. The first time that you click to activate it, you'll have to log in using the same credentials that you use for your iDoRecall account. We don't track your browsing history. If you find yourself on a web page where you want to use the extension, you'll have to click the pinned icon to activate it for that page. There are several actions that you can perform with the web clipper. I'll demonstrate them now on this Wikipedia page. You can click to capture the entire page as a PDF in your library. You'll get to rename that file here if you'd like. You can add a tag and set a deadline. It will take several seconds for our servers to read the page, create a PDF, and place it in your library. We have two tools for capturing a portion of the page. One highlights and copies some text that you've selected, and the other creates and captures a screenshot of an area of interest where you've dragged a marquee. These are analogous to two of our recall creation tools that you've already seen in our library file viewer. First, I'll demonstrate the text highlight tool. There, a pop-up appears and you have two choices. On the left, you can click and save the text as a highlight. Let's do that. Now let's do another highlight, but this time we'll click the plus sign on the right of the pop-up and we'll create a recall. The extension Recall Creation Form has some, but not all of the features present on the Recall Creation Forms in the app. I'll complete and save the recall. Now let's do the same with the screenshot tool. First, let's save a highlight of a screenshot. Now let's create a recall. I'll close this Wikipedia page. Back in the library of the app, here's the entire Wikipedia page that was captured as a PDF. You can now use this PDF as a source file and create linked recalls as you would with any other file in the library. At the bottom of the tags panel, we have external sources of content. Let's check out the web clipper and open the Wikipedia page that we were just on. Here are the two recalls and two highlights that we created. We can open a recall by clicking this icon to edit it. We can click the plus sign to draft a recall for one of the highlights. We can completely change the captured text in the answer field if we like. This recall will still be linked to the highlighted text on the web page. If we go over to the recall section of the app, here are the recalls that we just created. Notice that you can see the source link here in the edit form. It functions like the source link we've demonstrated in practice. If we click it, the Wikipedia page will open in a new browser tab and scroll to the location of the image that we clipped. The scissors icon marks that location. Now let's open the text highlight tool and click the source link. Again, the source page opens in a new tab and scrolls to the location of the highlighted text. The web clipper effectively makes every public-facing web page on the internet available to you as part of your iDoRecall library. Now let's take a look at the ability to sync with your Kindle highlights and create linked recalls. In order to sync your Kindle highlights, first you must have the iDoRecall browser extension installed. Then go to the integration section of the profile and click to sync your highlights initially and then again in the future whenever you want to resync for new highlights you've created. Your Kindle highlights are hosted on a URL, read.amazon.com/notebook. That page will come into view during the syncing process. The highlights hosted on that web page are aggregated from your reading and creating highlights of your Kindle books on your computer in the browser, in the Kindle Cloud Reader, or in your Kindle desktop app on your computer. Also, highlights that you create while reading the Kindle app on your mobile devices ends up on these pages. But the highlights that you create while reading Kindle books on a physical Kindle device are not included on this page and not included in the syncing process. Those highlights are only stored on the actual physical device. In the future, we'll create a software tool that you'll be able to download that will enable you to sync with your physical Kindle device. After the sync is completed, the Amazon page will close. If you go to your library and look at the bottom of the tags panel, click Kindle under the External Resources section, and the list of all of your Kindle books will appear. If you click a book, you'll see the list of highlights you've created as you read that book. Click a plus sign to create a recall that will be linked to that highlight. As always, you can edit and even totally change the highlight text that was pasted in the answer field. Your recall will still be linked to that highlighted text. When you click the source link during practice, your Kindle desktop app, if you have it installed on your computer, will boot and the book will open at the page of the highlighted text. We suggest that if you check a source link during practice that boots the Kindle desktop app, that you quit the Kindle app immediately afterwards. This is because there's a bug in the Kindle app that prevents it from jumping to another highlight in the same book if that book is already opened in the app. If the next time you check a source link, it's to a different book and the Kindle desktop app is open to the first book, then it will jump correctly to the highlight in the second book. iDoRecall has a Pomodoro timer located in the library section. You can see it here on the sidebar. You can use it to help you perform focused work sessions, and in particular, it's intended to help you perform undisturbed sessions of consuming your learning materials and creating linked recalls. If you leave the library in the app and go to another section, say the recall section, or if you go to another browser tab altogether, the timer will pause until you return to the library. It's really simple to operate. Click to start it, and a standard 25-minute Pomodoro will start. You'll see the 25 pulsating slowly, and it will count down with each minute. At the end, a pop-up will appear to announce the end of the Pomodoro session. If you click this triangle, you can choose a different interval from 5 to 30 minutes in length. We keep track of your Pomodoro minutes, and you can see this metric in the Your Progress subpage of the profile. There you have it. Thanks for hanging in for another deep dive of the current state of iDoRecall. We're focused on leveraging proven cognitive science principles to help you remember everything you learn for as long as you want to remember it. I'd like to point out again that we've just begun to offer valuable content for free. These include companion, comprehensive linked recall sets for most of the OpenStax Creative Commons licensed college and high school textbooks. You can make full use of these recall sets even with a free iDoRecall account. We'll be rolling out a lot of companion sets for other third-party educational content so that you'll be able to use iDoRecall even if you don't like creating your own flashcards. Until the next time I take you on another deep dive of iDoRecall, I'm David Handel.